All right, everyone. Welcome back to the land of Chem. I am your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is episode 78, and today I will be discussing ancient Egyptian mining, metals, and metallurgy, one of my favorite topics that has been developing here on the land of Chem, and the research that I present at the end of today's episode will unravel the mystery more than anything else I have ever presented. I have a lot of ground to cover in today's episode, so I will leave it at that. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, click that little notification button, and stay tuned, because the more I dig, the more fascinating the story becomes, and you do not want to miss what I have coming up. If you want to help support the channel, just check out thelandofchem.com. You can pick up some merch, grab a copy of the book. Either way, all the orders mean the world to me. Thank you so much for the support. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's intro. So without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. So in today's video, I'm going to present a comprehensive overview covering all the metals that have been discovered in my research, including those from the chemical analysis of the Red Pyramid staining, the metallurgical analysis of the ancient Egyptian saw blades, chemical analysis of the Giza Plateau iron oxide deposits, and so on, all of which have been presented individually in previous episodes here on the channel. And we are going to start today with iron, which I hope by now we are all on the same page that the ancient Egyptians not only knew about, but were mining, processing, and utilizing for various applications. And I will put links to several relevant episodes in the video description below. Next up, the 5 metals that were discovered in the chemical analysis of the Red Pyramid staining that I discussed in that now 3-part series, including copper, zinc, iron, antimony, and thorium. So let's start with copper. Everyone knows that the ancient Egyptians had copper. However, it has been recently shown that they were also creating sophisticated alloys with this metal, including arsenical bronze, an alloy of 90% copper and 10% arsenic that completely changes the properties of the copper, making it as hard as steel. And it has been proved by irrefutable chemical analysis that this is the metal used in the ancient Egyptian saw blades. And I will be circling back to copper at the end of the video, because arsenical copper is not the only copper alloy that was being produced in ancient Egypt. And we are about to go even further down the rabbit hole than you could ever imagine, with the assistance of some very legitimate academic publications. Real science, ladies and gentlemen, that continues to back up every single hypothesis that I have presented in my book and here on the channel. Next up, we have zinc. And I will be coming back to this in just a moment. Iron, we already covered. So first, now antimony. And I have covered this in previous episodes, but it is such a fascinating metal that is unfortunately so seldomly mentioned that I wanted to refresh everyone's memory that this unique metal was absolutely being mined, processed, and utilized by the ancient Egyptians. And it is well documented in the historical record that antimony was being used in ancient Egypt for cosmetics, as you can see here in this article discussing stibnite, which is the most common antimony ore. And I will quote, "It was used in antiquity as kohol, silver gray eyeshadow, especially in ancient Egypt. The antimony, which was extracted from it, is associated with lead," end quote. And I'll be coming back to lead again at the end of the video, and we have found this in several other chemical analyses. Also, begin quote, "Antimony is a flame retardant in the textile and plastics industries, or a pigment used in the manufacture of glass and pyrotechnics," end quote. Some very unique heat and fire related properties, perhaps one of the reasons for its incorporation in the sealing compound found covering the chamber walls inside the Red Pyramid. And of course, glass, a massive ancient chemical-based industry, and pyrotechnics. And yes, I do believe that explosive compounds were being produced and utilized by the ancient Egyptians. Enter ammonium nitrate, as I have discussed before. Next up, the thorium, discovered in the Red Pyramid chemical analysis, which comes from a mineral called monazite and led me to one of the greatest discoveries that I have ever made, which is that the black Chem, referred to in ancient Egypt, may have had a dual significance. As with the other esoteric symbols that I have presented here on the channel, the scarab, the bull, the deity Ammon, etc., all of which have a superficial interpretation fit for the public, i.e., Chem being the dark, rich alluvial soil around the Nile River, and a deeper meaning intended for the initiates of ancient chemistry. And that deeper meaning pointed me to the exotic mineral-rich black sand deposits that are located all across the Mediterranean coast of Egypt that you can see here. And as discussed in yet another legitimate academic paper, heavy minerals, including monazite, in Egypt's black sand deposits. Monazite being the primary mineral source of thorium. However, these black mineral sands don't have just monazite, but also contain ilmenite, which should sound very familiar to anyone that has been following, and I will circle back to that in just a moment, but also magnetite, hematite, zircon, and rutile. So this is the Nile Delta here. This is the Cairo area here, and here is the location of the Giza Plateau pyramids. And here, all along the Mediterranean coast, is the location of these black sand deposits. And I will be making an expedition out to Alexandria to see these in person very soon. So what else can we find in these black sands beside thorium ore? Well, I bring to you yet another academic publication, which I can guarantee you will never see this type of real science presented elsewhere. The Egyptian placer sand deposits, a potential source for nuclear raw materials. And I want to make it abundantly clear that I am not suggesting the ancient Egyptians were producing any type of nuclear reactions or power. That would be absolute nonsense. However, they were absolutely harvesting these sands to provide the raw materials for several other chemical reaction and metallurgical applications that you will see soon. So these sands, quote unquote, contain strategic and economic heavy minerals that are required for the industrial exploitation, whether for the nuclear industry or other metallurgical and engineering industries. The mentioned deposits comprise huge reserves of these 6 heavy economic minerals, which include monazite, zircon, rutile, ilmenite, magnetite, and garnet. The first 3 economic minerals, namely monazite, zircon, and rutile, contain uranium, thorium, zirconium, hafnium, titanium, as well as rare earth elements, end quote. And we have seen many of these trace rare earth elements in every single chemical analysis that I have presented thus far. And I'll be getting back to ilmenite in just a moment. But one more quote. Quote, titanium dioxide for the nuclear industry and paints can be produced from the rutile concentrate. And in the meantime, zircon as a mineral would be used in the ceramics industry, whereas rutile as a mineral would be used in the welding rod industry. Besides, the rare earth oxide cake could also be used in ferrosilicon alloys, end quote. This entire paper is barking up the very same tree that I have been discussing and sounding very familiar to what we found in the Giza Plateau iron oxide deposits. And let me clarify myself one more time that I am not suggesting that the ancient Egyptians were using this for any sort of nuclear applications, because there is absolutely zero evidence of this anywhere in Egypt. However, there is abundant evidence for complex paints and sealing/coating compounds, ceramics, and other metallurgical alloys. All right, everyone, just a quick reminder that if you want to support the channel, I need your help now more than ever, as I am living in Egypt, so I can bring you this type of content full time. So if you want to help support, just go to thelandofchem.com. There's all sorts of merch. This is the new black on black logo, my personal favorite, but I also have hoodies, long sleeve shirts, t-shirts, multiple different colors, several different logo designs. I have a whole bunch of new designs coming up soon. And of course, the genesis for the entire Land of Chem YouTube channel, my book, The Land of Chem, An Initiation into Ancient Chemistry, through the degrees of the Egyptian pyramid. So if you want to show some love, just go to thelandofchem.com, grab a copy of the book, pick up some merch. Either way, all of the orders mean more to me than words can possibly ever describe. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. All right, now back to arsenical copper, one of the most important alloys in the ancient world, not only in Egypt, but across the planet. And yes, it has been absolutely proven that a number of ancient civilizations had and were using arsenical bronze to cut stones. And just a tiny amount of independent research will reveal everything you could ever hope to learn about ancient metals and stone cutting. So this is a piece of natural copper, and this is a piece of processed arsenic. However, these two metals are almost never found in nature as separate minerals. They are always found and mined together from arsenical copper ore, which you can see here. And this is an image of a copper mine that is permeated with arsenical copper. And for any of you who just saw my recent site visit to the Lost Pyramid of Dashur, this area should be looking very familiar, and all of the pieces are starting to come together. And it was proven by chemical analysis of the metal particles found in saw cuts all across Egypt that they were using arsenical copper blades to cut these stones. And you can see here the remnants of these metal saw blades from an analytical scanning electron microscope. This is an inarguable fact, ladies and gentlemen, but it wasn't just the saw blade that was involved in the stone cutting process. Enter ilmenite, and I hope the light bulbs are just exploding in your head because I just showed evidence of ilmenite mineral being found in those black sand deposits. And what is ilmenite composed of? Iron and titanium. And you can see here on the left, a natural ilmenite crystal, and here on the right, a piece of ilmenite that was discovered in a saw cut from ancient Egyptian stone. And you can see in this picture that I took on the Giza Plateau, a saw cut in black basalt, and it is filled with green copper oxide from the arsenical copper blade. But the most powerful cutting material wasn't the blade. It is the abrasive slurry that is containing these iron and titanium microparticles from that ilmenite crystal. And you can see here in a water wheel powered gear ratio machine that was being used by the ancient Romans. And the Romans got absolutely everything they knew about cutting and moving stone from the ancient Egyptians. So here is how it works. The water powers the wheel. The wheel is connected to a series of gears that increase one turn of the wheel into 10 or 100 or 500 cuts of the saw, depending on the gear ratio. This is a simple physics-based machine that could have even been powered by hand, where one turn of the wheel produces hundreds of rotations of a straight blade or a core drill. And you can see here that the water flowing through a trough and a guy pouring something into the saw cut. This is the abrasive slurry containing the pulverized ilmenite or garnet, which is the material that actually cuts through the stone with the assistance and drive of the saw blade. Once again, real research, real science, proven by chemical analysis and documented in the historical record. And here is one more nail in the lost ancient high technology coffin. An article from the Met Museum. And I'm just going to read this whole thing because some people out there really need to hear this. Ancient Egyptian craftsmen were exceptionally skilled and prolific in extracting and shaping a wide variety of stones. For millennia, soft and hard stones were quarried, cut, drilled, carved, and polished with a variety of tools and techniques, and it is generally agreed that abrasives played a significant role. Both saws and core drills used particulate abrasives, and the finishing of sculptures and architectural elements was likely carried out with a combination of rubbing stones and abrasive slurries. Scientific analysis using scanning electron microscopy and energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy identified the material as a mixture of predominant angular grains of corundum, aluminum oxide, with jagged edges, and a few other minerals such as quartz, rutile, feldspar, apatite, ilmenite, augite, biotite, and chromite, usually smaller in size with high angularity. Very fine particles of calcite surround the bigger particles, which are most likely the remains of the indurated limestone that has been drilled. Several particles of corroded bronze and green copper corrosion products are intimately dispersed among the above-mentioned particles, imparting the light green color. So those of you who continue to follow and support the narrative associated with lost ancient high technology are intentionally ignoring the legitimate science that has been conducted in this field. And it is very easy to do a small amount of research to dispel these type of myths. And here is another beautiful scanning electron microscopy image showing a metal microparticle found from a stone cut in Dashur that is a fused particle of copper, arsenic, some tin from the blade, and iron and titanium from the abrasive slurry. And sure, the cutting process generated heat, which is why they constantly introduced water as shown in the previous slide. And these scanning electron microscopy images are absolutely spectacular because we can actually see a tiny glimpse of the miraculous, brilliant chemistry and metallurgy of the ancient Egyptians. End story, and I rest my case. Now, on to some even more exciting metals, as discovered in the metallic coating compound that sealed at least one of the containers on the second level of the Osiris shaft system, as I showed in my full documentary from my private special permission access into that off-limit site last year. And yes, I will put links to all of these original episodes in the video description below. So what is the metallic material that we are looking at here? Allow me to present yet another chemical analysis, which shows this material is composed mostly of lead with some titanium, zinc, arsenic, and iron, all of which I have shown evidence for in this video. So now let's focus on lead, which you can see here in a beautiful crystalline mineral. But lead is almost never found in its pure state, as with pretty much all metals except for the inert platinum group, which we'll get to at the end of the video. And I have discussed before in my video on ancient Egyptian sulfur mining that lead was being harvested along with silver from a mineral called galena, which you can see here. And it is well documented in the historical record that the ancient Egyptians were harvesting galena from a mining area called Gebel El Zayt, which is located over here, east of the stone quarries in Aswan, as depicted in this beautiful painting by artist Jean-Claude Golvin, showing one of these galena mines. So galena is the natural mineral form of lead sulfide, and it is also an important source of silver. And yes, I will be coming back to the precious metals in another episode, and here are some microparticles of gold and electrum that were discovered in the recent chemical analysis of the Giza Plateau iron oxide deposits. So galena contains silver and lead, but it is also closely associated and often mined with antimony, copper, and zinc, coming back full circle to the beginning of today's episode, where this ore can be processed to extract all of these metals, including zinc. Once again, providing research-based evidence for every single metal that I have discussed today. And we also found lead inside of the red pyramid in this sample location from the secondary reaction chamber. And here is a scanning electron microscopy image of a tiny piece of galena from that analysis. Now, on to chromium that was discovered in the Giza iron deposits, and you can see here this piece of chromite, which I wanted to find evidence of naturally occurring in Egypt. And of course, one quick Google search found several academic publications discussing exactly this topic. As you can see here, a compositional variance of chromite from the Eastern Desert in Egypt. And this map here shows the locations of these deposits, also very close to the mining district of Gebel El Zayt. And here is a natural piece of chromite. But this is where it gets even more interesting, as in the purity of the chrome metal that was found in the chemical analysis of the Giza iron deposits, which you can see here. This one is 85.89% chrome. This one, 72.29% chrome. And this one, 71.79% chrome. A remarkable consistency and purity that is not to be expected in a naturally occurring deposit. Not to mention the appearance of these flakes or plates from these SEM scans. As you can see here, with this one, 69.89% purity, and this absolutely spectacular piece with 93.44% purity. Absolutely no way that this is a naturally occurring piece of chromite. And I hope you are all on the edges of your seats by now, and it is about to get even more interesting with this. The ruthenium metal that was discovered in these same deposits, containing a staggering 67.98 and 66.28% purity. However, ruthenium is an inert metal that does not react. So these particles could absolutely be naturally occurring as a part of a platinum group metal deposit that lies within these Giza iron deposits. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, at the bottom of the rabbit hole, I bring you this. Yet another scholastic publication from the world of legitimate science, titled Ancient Egyptian Materials and Technology. And you are about to be shocked at what truth can be discovered with a tiny amount of actual research. Buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So this is a fascinating book published by the Cambridge University Press. And there is an absolutely monumental section written by Jack Ogden discussing, wait for it, the metals of ancient Egypt. And I'm going to walk you through this section while providing a few quotes. First, quote, "We know little of the prospecting habits of the Egyptians, but they were thorough and perhaps systematic in their discovery of metalliferous deposits, employing a combination of large-scale state expeditions and smaller prospecting/surveying groups." End quote. Next, begin quote, "Our understanding of ancient Egyptian metals comes from the careful study of surviving examples, using increasingly the analysis and internal study made possible by technological advances," end quote, i.e., real modern age high technology, the only realm in which this phrase is applicable. He then goes on to discuss antimony metal and its mining, bronze and electrum, and then dives into copper alloys, their occurrence and retrieval, including the mining, processing, extraction, and smelting techniques, and then including the specifics covering alloys of copper, including what? Arsenical copper, and I quote, begin quote, "Arsenic presence results in the production of wrought iron of far greater hardness, a vital property for implements and weapons, and also greatly facilitates the casting by causing the molten metal to flow more smoothly." End quote. And damn, it feels so good to be right. And the truth, ladies and gentlemen, shall set you free. But I am not even close to done yet. He covers copper, tin alloys, which I just showed in that fused fragment from the saw cut. There's also covering copper alloys with lead, copper zinc alloys, and how these objects were manufactured, smelting sites, which you can see here, as I will be further investigating in my continual exclusive on-site expeditions to the Lost Pyramid of Dashur. This section here discusses beeswax in casting and molding, another topic that I will be covering in a future episode. Then here, he discusses decorative inlays and overlays on copper alloy objects, which immediately brought to mind the copper sheathing of the calcite bowls at Abu Ghurab that I have presented before. And then on to gold and electrum and the mines from which they were extracted, the refining process, and then iron, documented as being used by the ancient Egyptians in a scholastic publication, putting an end to the fallacious narrative that conventional archaeology says they didn't have or use iron. Here it is, right here, in an academic paper published by Cambridge Press. If you do some real research, ladies and gentlemen, you will be shocked at what you can find. And I am certainly, clearly, the only channel that is doing this type of work. And here is a smelting apparatus looking very much like a modern blast furnace and describing, quote, the direction of forced air through the tuyeres, a word for air intake. He continues with a discussion on lead, and everything in this book just continues to back up all of the data that I have presented in this video with hard scientific evidence. He then moves on to mercury, another topic for a later episode. And in the last few pages, he talks about silver, tin, and zinc, all of which we have discussed today. But here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the entire reason that I began searching for this type of evidence, the platinum group metals, including ruthenium. And I will finish this part with a direct quote with no additional context. Begin quote, "The platinum group of metals includes platinum itself, as well as palladium, ruthenium, iridium, osmium, and rhodium. Small grains composed of various alloys of these metals frequently occur in alluvial gold deposits. Due to their hardness, specific gravity, and chemical inertness, they often remain with the gold throughout the separation and metalworking process." This is an absolutely critical book in beginning to truly understand the mining, metallurgy, chemistry, and industries of the ancient Egyptians, and it has provided one of the biggest breakthroughs in my research. And lastly, I will close this episode with a short clip from my recent exploration of the Giza Plateau, where I made an absolutely major discovery. And I won't spoil the big reveal yet. You'll just have to subscribe and stay tuned. And as you guys know, I'm always on the lookout for indications of fluid dynamics, flow patterns, erosion. So you see these deposits here. There's a piece here. There's a piece there. And as I'm walking up towards the rut here, look at this channel. There's a channel here that goes down into the rut in between this part here and this part here. And something was flowing through this channel down into the rut. Seeing this in person, this is 100% conclusive. This was a channel of some sort. Look, they put modern blocks here, most likely to cover up the very smooth, eroded channel here that's leading down into this. Again, you see that big old chunk of iron oxide right there and leading down into the rut. There's another little channel there. So there was absolutely something flowing through here, eroding this channel out. Look at how curved this is here. And look at how smooth this is. Flowing down into the ruts. Let's see if we can get this from this angle here so you can see again this incredibly eroded area here. All right, fascinating stuff. And this is awesome for day 2 of living here in Egypt.
Hell yeah, this is what it's all about.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was episode 78, Ancient Egyptian Mining, Metals, and Metallurgy. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. And in the next episode in the series, I think we're on Sunday site visit number 5, which will feature some absolutely groundbreaking research from the Bent Pyramid of Dashur. If this is the type of content you're interested in, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button because you do not want to miss what I have coming up soon. If you want to show some love, just check out thelandofchem.com. You know what to do. Grab some merch, copy of the book. Either way, all of the orders mean the world to me. Thank you all so much for the support. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's video. So I will see you next time.
Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.